Let's get into the Trump story because last week news broke. I believe it was Friday that the news broke.
It was Friday evening, yeah.
$83.3 million settlement.
Not a settlement. A verdict. An award.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, you are a former lawyer turned political commentator.
Legal. A Montreal litigator turned Florida rumbler.
There you go.
Yeah, the verdict came out on a Friday, 5:30, 6 o'clock. $83.3 million, for those who don't know, Jean Carroll, a woman who, in my humble opinion, is
ugly,
bat poop crazy. I don't even
we were going to have to pay for this.
No. I qualified. It's my opinion.
Oh, okay.
I believe she's a liar. I believe she's crazy. And I believe everybody knows it. I believe Anderson Cooper knows it. I believe Rachel Maddow knows it.
Yes.
She sued Trump under this newly passed piece of legislation.
The Survivors Act?
That they basically made for her.
It was her lawyer in an interview. I put together a bit of an analysis yesterday. Her lawyer in an interview said, Jean Carroll, was basically instrumental in getting this legislation passed. It opened a one-year window for adult survivors of sexual assault to sue. So they just basically create a one-year window, and that window...
For how far back?
Oh, I don't want to make a mistake. I want to say either... I think it was... I don't know the exact statute of limitations of it.
I think it was the 90s.
It had to be 25 years because it has to be at least that, if not indefinite.
So
if you ever were prohibited from threats or whatever from filing a suit, you have a one-year window now to do it as an adult.
Okay.
That window expired in November 2023. So an amazing thing, and I just put up this tweet, like in 2020, Time magazine bragged about how they changed rules and laws to fortify the election. Oh. Literally what they did now, they changed a law, enacted a new law with the help of Jean Carroll, to create a one-year window to file a civil claim for an act that would have otherwise been barred by statute of limitations.
Wow.
She files the claim like the day the law comes into effect. The window's now closed, so nobody can do it, conveniently enough. Sues Trump for what many people rightly feel are basically 3-decade-old hallucinations about having been sexually assaulted in a Bergdorf changing room. Ironically enough, it happened to be the exact plot of a Law and Order Special Victims Unit.
She said she was wearing a dress that hadn't been invented yet.
She said she was wearing a dress that was on a cover magazine that was not created yet. The plot of the Special Victims Unit was this story. No physical evidence, no video evidence, nothing other than her file suit in, I think it was the Southern District of New York. It's in New York. And lo and behold, gets a jury verdict. It's even more complicated because there was a first verdict which found Trump liable for sexual, not sexual assault, sexual battery, but for a term, but not rape, specifically not rape. After that verdict, Trump comes out on Truth Social, posts 2 truth posts, says, I never did it, I never met this woman, she's crazy, she's lying, and I didn't rape her. And then she sues him for defamation for that assertion of innocence.
Jesus.
And that's what she gets, the $83.3 million verdict, $65 million punitive damages, $11 million for the reputation rehabilitation program, $7.5 or $7.3 million damages.
And this is for a woman who, I mean, I know she was in a Vice columnist through the 90s or 80s, 90s.
That makes sense.
But she's got to be in her what, late 60s?
Right.
No. I think she's in her 80s now.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
there's a woman in her 80s, and she's suing for how much of the verdict actually goes towards defamation? Like what he said defamed her.
Reputational damage portion of it was $7.3 million. Wow. This is a woman, by the way, who had done the tour. Everyone thinks she's crazy already. I'm not sure what reputation she has that was damaged by this. She was claiming she was getting death threats, harassment because of these truth posts. Some people might say if she's getting any of that, A, it's not causally related to what Trump said or did, and B, it might be because people think she's crazy and has nothing to do with Trump.
Right.
Either way, 7.3% million for reputational damages, 65 million punitive, and then she goes out on a celebrity tour, and we're going to play these clips, talking about how she's going to spend Trump's money, and she's like, I said this, my assessment, she's not a woman acting like someone who survived sexual assault.
No.
She's acting like a woman who just won the lottery, but everyone can judge for themselves.
Taking a victory lap.
Good. I'm going to do with this money.
Listen to this.
First thing, Rachel,
shopping.
You and I are going to go shopping. We're going to get completely new wardrobes,
They're all
new
going,
shoes.
Pure evil. Look at these scumbags.
Look at her lawyers.
Rachel, what do you want? Penthouse?
Scumbags.
It's yours, Rachel. Penthouse and France? You want France? You want to go fishing in France?
What about giving back to the kids that are getting molested over the border?
Another clip about
That's a joke.
Look at that.
Look at her. Get her a
Oh my God.
joke. How about a makeover?
First of all, does she not sound...
If me fishing in France
could do something
Evil.
for women's rights, I would take the hit. You know, I mean, obviously.
Even Rachel Maddow looks
Take
embarrassed.
one for the team.
cow.
All right, let me. As if you need persuasion in that regard.
Let me. Making the joke. This is what the modern day lynch mob looks like now. But
Do we have the Anderson Cooper clip?
yeah,
here as well? Okay.
But does she not sound a lot like
Look at
Nancy
her.
Pelosi?
Look at her. She looks like Joe Biden's sister.
She looks like
Jesus.
Joe Biden.
Like you said, with Pelosi, they all turn into the same person.
You ever seen
Well, some people
Poltergeist?
chalk it up to like raging alcoholism at a later age, but they made it this long. I mean, they're allowed to drink.
You know what I'm talking about?
Listen to this. This is when she's on with Anderson Cooper, and if this doesn't make you think that she is certifiably insane, nothing will. And I think even Anderson Cooper's like, cut. When he says,
We're
cut the
gonna take a
commercial,
short break.
cut the commercial, look at this.
You don't feel like a victim.
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished. The word rape carries so many sexual connotations. This was not sexual. It hurt. It just, you know.
But I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most
sexual.
people think of rape as being sexy.
Whoa.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasy.
Listen to Anderson.
And cut the break.
We're just going to take a quick break.
You're
You're
fascinating.
Look at her. By the way, she's looking at him. She's looking at him going like this. What'd I say?
You're fascinating too,
What is that?
Anderson. You want to go for another martini?
She's like, yeah. She's like, I'm sorry. I'm on medication.
Something interesting about that is I was told that they did not allow the jury in this case to see that video because it would have shown the jury like, oh, she's nuts. So that excludes.
There was no trial in all of this. Let me rephrase. There was no trial on the merits in this. The judge, by some legal chicanery, we'll pull up the clips, the screen grabs in a second, by summary judgment said it's a matter of fact and law that Trump defamed her through the statement that when he denied the rape, well, it's what people understand as rape anyhow, and that he did indeed rape her, even though the verdict form said no to the question of whether or not Trump raped her. So they went by summary judgment to a trial only on quantum and did not allow evidence.
And this was the same judge that was appointed by Bill Clinton who oversaw the Jeffrey Epstein, Virginia Giuffre case and then dismissed that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Have you seen what he looks like, by the way?
Yeah, he looks like
all these people look like they're all in the same cult, if you will. They all look like they're up to really shady shit.
And then
he's a disturbing looking guy, if you know what I mean.
And then according to Alina Habba, Trump's attorney in this matter, the judge has a relationship with E. Jean Carroll's attorney, as they worked in the same law firm as each other in the 90s, but that conflict of interest doesn't
If you can
seem
imagine
to
this,
matter.
so the E. Jean Carroll's lawyer is a Roberta Kaplan with a K. The judge is Lewis Kaplan. They're not related, but apparently Lewis Kaplan in the late 90s was the mentor at the same firm as Roberta Kaplan. None of this was disclosed from what I understand. In terms of evidence that was not allowed, because this was only on quantum, we were not retrying the defamation because summary judgment, matter of fact, they didn't let in the video. They didn't let in a bunch of her social media posts. They didn't let in the fact that her cat, sorry, not her cat is named. She named her cat Vagina T Fireball. She put up posts about how, to chase a dog until it collapses, or she learned, sexual advances from a dog.
Sex tips from her dog.
What they didn't let in is nuts because the judge, through legal chicanery.
Because he's nuts too.
Well, the judge has his tools.
New York judge? What kind of judge?
New York judge. It's a New York judge.
Question: was among the evidence that you mentioned the fact that she was an admitted fan of The Apprentice? She liked the show. She actually said it was a fascinating TV show to watch. She'd never seen anything like that. There were tweets that showed. So, look, I've never been raped, and I feel horrific for any woman who ever has been. But I would assume if you're the victim of a crime in which, rape is about power control, right? You're taking that power over somebody, you're showing you control them. Somebody strips you of that as a woman, and you're in your most vulnerable state. Would you then go and be a fan of that guy's TV show?
And not just that, she had given an interview where someone had asked her, are you going to press charges? And she said, no, that would be disrespectful to the women south of the border who are being raped all day long. I mean, none of the story.
So she did bring that up.
Say it again?
She did bring that up.
Oh, yeah. Well, she mentioned it. But doing a victory lap, like, I'm going to spend Trump's money, and now talking like she won the lottery. But what the judge did to actually get to this is amazing, because people are running around saying Trump raped E. Jean Carroll. And you ask yourself how that happened. The judge is quoted as having said, he touched her, and he indeed raped her. And I'm saying, like, well, no, because the jury verdict form literally says, if we can pull up the screen grab, it says, no, the jury came to the finding that he did not rape her. And the judge, in a footnote referring to a prior decision, basically says, well, yeah, it's not rape under the New York Penal Code, but it's rape in terms of how people understand it outside the scope of the Penal Code. So when he denies having raped her, it becomes a factually false statement actionable under defamation law because of what the judge said. This is, and I'll bring it back to the beginning, you know, in 2020 they legislated and changed rules to affect the outcome of the election, and they did it again here. This was nothing but a tailor-made change of legislation to enable someone who had no statutory right to sue. The window closed, mission accomplished. They got their headlines and they got their $83 million verdict, which has to get overturned.
So let me ask you a question. Does he have to pay that?
Right now, no.
Where does he go from here? How does he combat this?
He's got to appeal. And so as far as I understand, in appeal, he might have to post a bond or put up the amount in court, no interest, whatever. I'm not exactly sure about that, but that's my understanding. But he's going to appeal it. And there are not just reversible errors. I believe there are impeachable chicanery that has taken place here. That I say that judge should be impeached because he's an appointed judge. He should be impeached and he should be disbarred because what he did 100%. Is an absolute bastardization of the legal system for political purposes.
So is this what they call lawfare? Where it's just only for political reasons, but they're hiding it? That way the average voter is going, I heard he raped her. I mean, he had to pay the money.
This is kangaroo court, you know, communist level.
Yeah.
On a number of fronts.
It's Venezuela.
You get E. Jean Carroll. How are you going to spend Trump's money? I mean, this is how you usurp private assets, give it to a thinly veiled political actor, and just take someone else's assets and give it to her. How do you do it? Fabricate charges, change the law so that the window is open, go sue in a totally politically prejudiced jurisdiction. We look back at the era where, you know, you could just get someone make charges against racial minorities.
Right.
In a racially prejudiced jurisdiction. They'll get convicted even if they weren't there. You know,
right.
Bob Dylan's The Hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
We've substituted racial prejudice with political prejudice, and these idiots on the left are just clapping it like,
I think
like
it's even bigger, weaponizing females against men. In 20, 30 years, how many OnlyFans girls are going to come after the guys that took them on dates or took them on a yacht and say, oh, what happened on that yacht? And there's no way that for the man to defend himself, or he's going to get an $80 million or whatever amount of money he has in his bank account judgment.
Well, this is the indirect, they don't care about the consequences because it's politically useful in the moment. But after the Me Too movement, it compromised and prejudiced women's positions in corporate America, corporate Canada, because people became very nervous about even being alone in a room with a woman because Lord knows what they're going to say after.
Well, that became the believe all women. And then if you look at this situation, you look at E. Jean Carroll, you look at all of the evidence that you've laid out, all of the evidence that we've been able to see, but the court did not allow as admissible evidence. You look at this, you go, none of this adds up.
No.
This is all very odd. But then if you say that out loud as a male, it's what, you think women are lying? Are all women victims?
Right.
Has every woman that's ever said they've been raped, have they been lying too? And it's like, no, wait a minute. I'm trying to say this woman, this scenario right here, this specific case doesn't make sense.
And then they go, well, what do you do? What are you hiding with your private time? You know, and you're like, hey, don't turn this around on me. I see what's going on. I don't think it's fair.
And remember, it wasn't just Donald Trump who got caught up in that law. Dozens of other people.
P. Diddy?
P. Diddy, New York City Mayor Eric Adams got a thing like 2 days before the cutoff back in November.
Criminal.
No idea what's happening there, but it's like basically anytime someone falls into disfavor with the left, they bring this against them.
This luck.
But that was right after Adams was,
complaining about the migrants.
Complaining about migrants and going after Biden. Suddenly like, oh, well, sexual assault allegations from someone who worked for you 30 years ago.
But I think the Me Too movement was necessary in a sense, right? Like there were clearly people who were abusing their power. You look at Harvey Weinstein, that guy was forcing himself on women, jacking off in plants in meetings where these women were showing up.
Well, you never done that, Ralph?
With consent, yes. But without their consent, no, I'm not a freak. You look at what just happened with Vince McMahon. The allegations against Vince McMahon and the WWE and the implication that there were people, high up executives that helped cover up those crimes. I mean, there have been rumors about Vince McMahon that have been going back since the 80s. So it's you look at that and you go, well, this is a guy who used to humiliate people. And you go, how? Well, Vince McMahon had a thing on wrestling where if he was going to fire you from the company, you'd have to get down on your knees and kiss his bare ass on live television. You could see how people who get into powers of position use that power, use that control for evil. You look at Bill Cosby. America's most trusted father on television turns out to be a horrific rapist.
Look at Ellen.
And
Look at
here's the
Ellen.
thing. When the Bill Cosby thing was going on, Hollywood knew about it. I worked for iHeartMedia, huge media company. I worked for a radio show in Cleveland, Ohio. We interviewed Bill Cosby. This was after the Andrea Costrand accusations had come out. And specifically, the theater that organized the interview with the radio station said, you can ask about anything but this. If you ask about this, we're going to disconnect the call. We were complicit in helping cover up those crimes because there was a woman who was saying this happened. What if there was a woman in Cleveland that was listening to that radio show that could have went, hey, wait, that happened to me too, but nobody would have believed me. She wasn't aware of the Andrea Costrand. So I do think that the Me Too movement was very necessary in the fact that it opened up the eyes of the American public to the corruption of power, specifically in Hollywood and business. However, when it starts to delve into this, where it's like, you must believe this woman. Why? Because she's a woman and she said it happened. Well, wait a minute. None of the evidence adds up to what this woman is saying. Doesn't matter. Believe all women. Rapists. You must make excuses for rape.
It's worse than that because it was never about believe all women. It was about believe all politically useful women.
Right.
And so you had what's her face? Christina Blasey Ford 30 years later making up these statements. But then Tara Reid.
Don't believe Tara Reid.
Tara Reid. And it was Lisa Bloom, who's Gloria Allred's daughter. Lisa Bloom actually put out a tweet and said, we know you're telling the truth. We know that he was handsy. We know that you complained about it at the time, but I've got to defeat Trump. I mean, it was never about believe all women.
And Bill Clinton's never been taken to task.
Oh,
so if you're
no,
on the right
God, no.
side of the politics, then you're not going to get...
The judge that was in charge of Donald Trump was also in charge of Bill Clinton for the Epstein Island stuff. Let him right off. You said that, though. You already said that.
Well, he was appointed by Bill Clinton, then oversaw the Virginia... How do you pronounce her name?
I think it's Guthrie, but...
Guthrie. And then dismissed that case. But there's so much... So let's fast forward. Do you think you're a former legal expert? You're very...
I'm making the bold prediction. It's tough to overturn a jury finding, a jury verdict. And by the way, everybody, let me just make the caveat. I'm not certified to practice in the States, but I've got half a functioning brain. I'm saying she's not going to see $1 of this. It is going to get overturned, and I think that might even be the less likely prediction. It has to, because if it doesn't, then there are such egregious wrongdoings in this particular trial that if it stands and he'll pay $5 million, no, because that would ratify the outrageous judicial injustices.
Right.
And they're in your face. They're in your face. If any competent, reasonably honest, Court of Appeals goes over this, they'll toss it, go have a new trial, and allow the evidence that was not allowed, and do not say, when it was specifically found that he did not rape her, that he indeed raped her, because colloquially speaking, most people understand it as that, so he can no longer deny the rape. It's nuts.